Today is Wednesday, June the 20th, 2012. I'm Matthew T.G.
I'm Heath Mulliken.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology and theology, everything in between. This is episode 160.
And this episode is brought to you by Kingswood University.
That was so awkward. Wow. Okay. There you have it, folks.
All righty. Matthew, let's go ahead. We've had some changes here on the show in terms of our live stream, things of that nature. Go ahead and talk to people how they can be in the chat room.
Yeah, okay.
Be part of the show today.
So if you're watching us live right now, which I'm sure you're having a blast because this is quality that you're seeing right now. This is just absolute quality. You're seeing the video, and over to the right-hand side of this video, there is a chat room. You just start typing a comment there and hit enter to post it. It'll ask you to log in. If you don't have an account, it'll ask you to create one using either Facebook or your email address. And Facebook's actually easiest. You can get it set up rather quickly, and you'll be in the chat room that way. So there you go.
All right, Heath, we got some cool giveaways today.
Yes, we have a great prize package from Kingswood University, including a mug just like...
No, that is one. You're blessing that with your own saliva.
And it will not be washed before
we should auction that on eBay now that it's at Heath's lips.
That's right.
Okay.
There's T-shirt. There's a flashlight.
We're
there's
wearing
that
the
mug.
T-shirt. We're sporting the shirts. Thank you, Kingswood. Thank you, Mark Gervette. And so we've already selected the winners. Do not send us calls or emails. We had, I think,
500 total entries.
Yeah, over 70 people entered. We've selected 3 winners, and we'll announce those at the end of the show. Steven Sheets is not eligible.
And might I say this, that mug was like the best giveaway?
Yes.
That is, I've been talking about that mug for a while. That's a really good mug.
It is.
It's the way it feels. Like I know that probably sounds really dumb to be talking about this, but it's just got this great texture to it. It's really good.
I'm not really into the feel of it, but I'm just saying
it's a good mug.
It's a nice, big, heavy mug.
The coolest thing was that if you go back and watch the General Conference business sessions, you'll see Kingswood mugs all across the front. And that was great product placement by them. So,
but by someone in particular, but you know.
And they were our first sponsor, and we were very grateful for their sponsorship of the show.
Yeah. How cool was this? When I sent out emails for sponsorship, within 5 minutes, Kingswood had locked in, literally within 5 minutes of sending out that email. We want it. We'll sponsor Monday. That quick.
That's
so
exciting,
big thanks to them. All right, we want to welcome our guest to the show today, Sher. She is a born and bred Wesleyan. She eagerly followed the footsteps of 4 generations and began her preparation for vocational ministry at Southern Wesleyan University in 1999. Upon completing her M.A. at Wheaton College in 2008, she was invited to join the staff of a non-denominational church in the Chicago suburbs led by Dave and John Ferguson, co-founders of Community Christian Church and New Thing Network. Sher's unprecedented leadership in building a bridge between suburban young adults and Chicago's homeless population became a significant source of inspiration that has helped lead this megachurch into a missional focus. Sher is currently in her 4th year on staff with Community Christian Church in Chicago. Between obtaining her undergraduate and graduate degrees, Sher spent a year with Global Partners working with World Hope in Bosnia. It was there that Sher learned the most about missional living. After moving to the inner city of Chicago in 2010 with the intention of simply being a good neighbor, she started JustEmbrace, whose mission is to remove social barriers that marginalize and divide communities through training, events, and hospitality. She specializes, word salad there. She specializes in pioneering new mission, especially through relational investment and celebration. She calls herself a pastor of the pastorless and thrives on developing leaders from among those society has given up on. Sher, welcome to the show this morning.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm just really offended that in your bio it doesn't mention that you worked for me. So I mean,
I was just going to say that. I don't know how that got missed.
Yeah, because I've been thinking it was probably the most formative years of your life, but there again.
It was absolutely a great experience, and I have had I have had great leaders since then, but you definitely set the bar really high.
Well, I'm just trying to milk a
He'll send you a check in the
Yeah,
mail,
that's right.
Sher, for saying that.
I'm being serious.
It's exciting to have you on today. With me going to school in Chicago, we have got together for a meal on several occasions. I think 2 years ago, I said something to you about coming on to the show, and it's just wonderful having you. Let's jump right in. Tell our listeners about JustEmbrace, and just tell them what that is and what you seek to do with that ministry.
Well, JustEmbrace seeks to lead the restore conversation. And what I mean by the restore conversation, I'm a part of a church that talks about the Jesus mission being threefold. And I talk about this, think about a Venn diagram. So you have in one of your circles reaching those who are far from God. You have in another one of your circles restoring God's dream for the world. And then in a third circle, you have reproducing that mission in others. And so as I have looked at this Venn diagram and I have seen how our church is talked about it and just seen the church in general, traditionally, the church has really perfected the reproduce part of the mission. So that's our doctrine, our leadership, theology, Sunday school, preaching, teaching, etc. We've compartmentalized the reach part as mission. So this is traditionally, like, I think right now we're doing it's a little bit different these days, but traditionally that's how it's been done. So your reproduce is your Sunday morning, it's your church, it's your structured stuff, and then your reach is your missions. And traditionally that's been viewed as an overseas venture. And then restore, I think, has been reduced to missions trips and or monthly volunteer hours. So instead of living lives kind of where those three circles merge, which is like the sweet spot where we're living lives of reaching, restoring, and reproducing, we're actually compartmentalizing what I think Christ intended for us to permeate every part of our lives. So currently, I think right now, from my experience and what I can see from my vantage point in the church, is the church is actually doing a great job of beginning to talk about where the reach and the reproduce come together. So they're beginning to mobilize the church out of the church. Like, let's leave the church building and actually be present in our communities and reaching those who are far from God. But I think what we're still seeing is we're still outsourcing the restore conversation. So my concern is that as we get more missional, that we're in danger of losing our momentum towards that sweet spot where all those R's, reach, restore, and reproduce, converge, because we're still outsourcing this restore. So kind of an explanation of that, or an example of that, I was talking to a pastor friend of mine recently, and this guy has spent his whole career surrounded by other Christ followers. Now, as we're having this missional push, it's helped him to realize that he's called to be out and about with those who are far from God. Yeah. So he goes to a sporting event with a guy from his community who talks like a sailor, drinks like a fish, and views women as sexual objects. And it's like, okay, so now he's out, he's in the world, and so this is what he's engaged with, right? So now the restore conversation comes in, and I feel like the church is doing a really good job of pushing us towards the missional part. But when we start to engage with people on the outside of what has traditionally been our comfort zone, what do we do then when we see what's going on? What has God empowered us? And again, I think that at times we're afraid of that conversation, and it looks like again, outsourcing. Yeah. So we tell people, or we don't mess with it, we don't deal with it, or we send them to professionals.
Well, when you say that the church outsources it, I mean, what do you mean by that? I mean, I can understand that we kind of ignore that part. I mean, how would a church outsource that? I mean, is it by that do you simply mean we just kind of leave that to itself? I think we lost.
No, I think that's why we have support and recovery groups in our churches. I think that's why we have missions trips. That's why we have food pantries. That's why we have volunteer opportunities. That's why we have these serving opportunities instead of cultivating lifestyles of restoration where the church is actually discipling Christ followers to be the agents of restoration. We have these professionals set up, and when we engage in real life stuff with people and we begin to see what's really going on there, we don't have the equipment to handle it, and we outsource it. So it's both a personal thing and it's an organizational thing. So
Got it.
I might not know how to restore my community or feel a responsibility to restore my community, but I might go on a mission trip once a year and spend a whole week building a house in Mexico. But when I'm living in my own community, I'm completely ignorant of the needs of my neighbors.
Yeah.
Sher, tell us, how does a middle-class girl raised in rural suburbia America make her way to the big city to start a ministry like JustEmbrace?
I'm not sure what part of a Wesleyan pastor's daughter that's turned into an urban missionary is considered middle class. So goodness gracious, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I don't know. I was living in Bosnia and working with Trent and Nikki Nettleton, and I knew I wanted to. I knew some of what I wanted to do with my life, but I wasn't sure where to go to school to continue to study. I'd been really kind of only exposed to Asbury at that point. That was really the only thing I knew of for extra school, which, by the way, Asbury is awesome.
Yes,
it
is.
great.
Yes, it is.
But I sent a letter to Joanne Lyon, and I sent her a letter and I said, "Hey, Joanne, I'm working for World Hope in Bosnia right now, and when I grow up, I want to be like you." She was the director of World Hope at that point, and I don't know where to go to school. I don't know what to study. I don't know what the best next step is for me. What would you suggest? And she gave me two suggestions. I sent the same letter to Dwight Robertson from Kingdom Building Ministries and to Melody Green, Keith Green's wife.
Yeah. Yep.
Never heard back from her.
Huh.
But Joanne responded, and one of her options was Wheaton College. And she suggested Wheaton because of their intercultural studies program, and one of their professors is Evie Campbell. And Evie Campbell, Dr. Campbell, was in the head of the community development branch of the intercultural studies program. And so that ended up being, I looked at several other options, but that ended up being where I moved and where I ended up going to school. So I moved to Naperville to be a nanny because I knew if I could live with a family and have room and board covered, then it would be easier to go to grad school. And the family I nannied for was going to this really cool hip church in Naperville, and I didn't want anything to do with it because I'm a small church girl, and I'm a Wesleyan girl, so to go to some highfalutin pretty church just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. But I went with them because I wanted to be kind to them. And while I was there, one of my classmates from Southern Wesleyan, Chris Tuller, was leading worship. And he was a baseball player when I was at Southern Wesleyan, several years older than me. So we didn't really know each other because there's lots of social barriers there, even in a really small school. And I went up to him after the service and I was like, are you who I think you are? And he was. So because of that randomness, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, and this guy who I vaguely knew from my days at Southern Wesleyan was leading worship at this church. I knew that God had brought me there for a reason, and I continued to attend the church. And God really, really worked in my life at that church, at this church, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this church. Within a couple of months, I became a young adult small group leader and was just really brought into their culture of leadership development here. And I had felt empowered and trusted in a way that I hadn't before. I really felt like this church is great at taking risks on people. And that was something that I always bring to the table, is just a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk associated with just the way that I live. And so after leading the young adults for about 3 years, I sensed God say to throw a birthday party for the homeless at Union Station. Union Station is like the hub of transportation in Chicago. And there's a lot of hustlers around those streets. And so I didn't want to do that at all. I didn't know anything about homeless people. I had a lot of preconceived ideas that they were all crazy, or that they'd kill me or something. And I did this birthday party really completely out of obedience. I thought God was just going to humble me, and that it was going to get shut down, that the police would arrest me. I mean, I really didn't know what would happen. And it ended up being an amazing experience. There were over like 35 young adults that came to help put it on, over 55 homeless men and women who came through, and we had a party together. We were able to fit people with coats and goodie bags of all kinds of goodies. So then 2 years after, every single week after that party, a group of young adults came into the city, and we would just hang out with the guys there at Union Station. So every Sunday for 2 years, there was this community developing. And then essentially I had the opportunity to move to the city, and I moved to Chicago just to be a good neighbor in the uptown community. I knew there was a significant homeless population and mentally ill population, and it wasn't long before there was just so much momentum, and we were doing birthday parties every month at the homeless shelter. We were doing foot clinics every month at a local church that we were partnering with, and JustEmbrace was born on Christmas night at McDonald's.
You know, it's interesting for people that have not been to Chicago, the inner city. Uptown is interesting in that in my lifetime, we went through the 70s and early 80s where people were just, if they had mental illness, they were sent to mental institutions, and so that was all deinstitutionalized back in the 70s, and it seemed like, well, that's a good thing, and I can't argue whether it was good or not, but when I visited you at Uptown, one of the things that struck me hard was how the people who have mental illness, many of them just took to the streets. And Uptown has become kind of a gathering point because of the history, because there was a mental institution in Uptown. And so clearly, you know, there is a need there. I mean, way more than I can even, you know, fully appreciate. I mean, I pop in and out of the city. I don't live there, you know, certainly like you do. As we started, you know, you talked a little bit in your bio about your own background, the way that you were raised within the Wesleyan context, within ministry. Talk a little bit how you think that has influenced you and kind of gotten you where you are right now.
Well, there's three points I wanna bring up. First, being raised in a pastor's home where my parents lived a lifestyle of ministry. Our home was a hub of broken men and women coming in and out and being embraced and loved, where people who were on the margins were brought in for holiday meals and just special events. My mom's an awesome hostess, and just really has the gift of hospitality.
Absolutely.
And it's not just within our home either. Like, we would take that places. I grew up singing at nursing homes and going and visiting elderly friends who were shut in, and spending time with the people who were on the margins. And even, you know, when we were in public, my parents displayed this lifestyle of inclusion. So there was never a person that we walked past quickly, that we kept our eyes down from. And it wasn't like this where they trained us. Now, kids, you always make eye contact with strangers. It wasn't like that at all. It was just an example that they showed. So that's definitely one thing. Another thing is just in Christianity. Luther is one of my heroes, and he has made Peter's words famous with the priesthood of believers. So although I grew up in an active ministry home, thanks to Peter and Luther, and then eventually Alan Hirsch has definitely brought this back into my life as well, I know that ministry is not just for the elite. It's for followers of Christ. It's a lifestyle. And so I think what's tragic, we've equated ministry with leadership, and I think there's definitely something about leadership, and that there's a place for that, but it's not at the exclusion of a lifestyle of restoration and a lifestyle of ministry. So I think we've made following Jesus with reckless faith something that's rare, and that it's actually supposed to be just a normal outpouring of following Jesus. And something that actually just kind of dawned on me today is I've been refamiliarizing myself with my Wesleyan roots the last couple of weeks, and there's no question that this holiness thing that I have taken with me and that has been implanted in my heart is absolutely the fuel behind restoration.
Sure, yeah.
It is the holiness message in its purity. That's what it is, because it's that transformation that happens when we are restored, when we are made holy, and it is from that experience within ourselves that then we can bring that into our other relationships and community. So those are my three answers.
Sher, here in the United States, evangelical Christianity has been predominantly a white, middle-class movement. What do you wish evangelicals understood about ministry within your context? I mean, what is it that we don't know?
I think my answer, actually, we do know. We just pretend that we don't know it. And it's that we can't hide from our vulnerability. The sooner that we realize that we're all broken and vulnerable, I think the sooner we'll be able to stop treating the vulnerable around us like projects.
Wow.
And we'll actually be able to get into the trenches of life with them, and then in those trenches meet Jesus there. Jesus is definitely everywhere, but he's a lot easier to find among the vulnerable and the outcast. I mean, you can clearly see that in Scripture. He's just easier to find, I think, because in order to look for him there, we have to strip ourselves of pride and entitlement. So it's the only way to find Jesus anywhere, really. So I mean, even if you're looking for him in the suburbs, you're not going to find him unless you're humbling yourselves. But when you're around the broken of society, it's a lot harder to hold on to your pride and entitlement because it's just in your face. So there's something about being engaged, about truly being engaged with the broken, that transforms us and allows us to engage Jesus more authentically.
In a moment here, I want you to answer this question. If there was someone that's listening today and, they really feel like they're being moved.
Okay?
Yeah, we're fine here, Sher. Are you fine there? Did we lose you?
Hello?
Yeah, I just didn't hear anything for a minute.
Okay, yeah. I think our connection, we don't have the most solid connection, so it's lagging a little bit for you.
Hello, I hear you.
We apologize for that. We're there, Sher. At this time, we're going to have a word from our sponsor. Let's hear from Kingswood University.
This episode of the Techology Show is brought to you by Kingswood University. Prepare for full-time Christian service by earning a degree in ministry. Feel the heartbeat of Kingswood to become more like Christ. Embrace academic excellence and learn from highly trained, experienced practitioners. Become a passionate missional leader by participating in real-life ministry. Kingswood University offers you the opportunity to create your own degree focus for God's unique call on your life. Kingswood University equips Christ-like servant leaders for global impact.
For more information, please visit www.kingswood.edu.
All right, Sher, if there's someone listening today who'd like to start a ministry to the marginalized of society, how can they start? Where should they begin?
Time delay.
I think you're done talking. So,
Maybe we should try to reconnect this call. Maybe that would be the best thing to do. Let's try to do that. So Sher doesn't know what just happened to her because she just got cut off. But
we apologize for the technical. We don't have the strongest connection with Sher, so hopefully a refresh here will help us.
hey, everybody.
All right, we're trying again. We were on a bit of a time delay with you there for some reason, so let's see if we're working better now.
Is that any better, Sher?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay. I just asked you the question, if there's someone listening today who'd like to start a ministry to the marginalized, where should they start? How can they begin this?
I'd say probably the first place to start is twofold, but starting with identifying who's on your margins. So if you want to start a ministry to society's marginalized, there's a good chance that you have other people on your margins, that it's not the same people that society has marginalized. So there's a good chance you have a heart for compassion and justice. And I think my own experience, God put me here. I'm actually in Naperville right now at the Yellow Box, and God put me at this church, which does not represent the people that I had always been drawn to as far as ministry goes. So he put me in a pretty hip suburban church doing young adult ministry. Like, the population of the world that I am the most insecure around is people my age, doing ministry for 3 years. And I wanted to live in love among the poor since like junior high school. But those 3 years of giving my heart and my life to young adult ministry, and I did it, and I loved it, and it was an awesome experience. But those years were invaluable for me because it gave me a heart for the people who are on my margins. So I think if we really want to make a difference, we can't go after one issue and ignore another, and that has to start with ourselves. Yeah. So like we can't go after women's rights issues if we're going to ignore the plight of the poor. We can't rebuild wells of clean water in Africa and then still support the way that the American penal system is currently run. I don't think we can sponsor a compassion child and believe that people are homeless because they just didn't make good choices. If we really want to live this lifestyle of restoration and really have an impact on the margins, I think if we want to work with the marginalized in our society, we have to understand how deeply our prejudices go. We have to see that and acknowledge that and repent of that and allow God to be there. Yeah. And in that way that we're actually beginning to minister out of our humility and out of our brokenness. One of my favorite authors and favorite books that he ever wrote is Henry Nouwen's The Wounded Healer.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that's exactly, I think, if anybody wants to work with the broken in society, which everybody is broken, then we need to identify our own wounds and allow from the healing of those wounds the power to restore, to come out of that.
Very good.
You make a great point, Sher, as far as our prejudices. I mean, Jesus, when he encountered one of the men born blind, everybody asked him, well, who sinned that this man is blind? And Jesus said, this isn't anybody's fault. This happened so that the glory of God might be revealed. And I think a lot of times in ministry, we're like, well, what did this person do to end up in this situation? And instead we should say, we're in this situation. This person's in this situation so that God can use our church to reveal the glory of God in their life. Sher, how can people get involved with JustEmbrace and support it and learn more about this great ministry?
Well, first of all, I'd welcome everybody to join the Just Embrace This Place campaign. We just launched it this morning, although my brother was too excited and he launched it himself yesterday.
Way to go,
So,
Steven.
Nice.
You can go to justembrace.org /Just Embrace This Place, or you can just go to stevensheets.com because he would love the traffic more than I understand what web traffic means. So definitely we're looking at raising $18,600 to help give us just a cushion to go into this next year of ministry. We're going to try to raise $100,000 this summer actually. So this campaign is just for a small chunk of it to help us with the rent of the apartment that we're moving into. So check that out. Check our website out, justembrace.org. Lots of exciting videos, just really inspiring stuff. Come to the Missional Holiness Conference in September in in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at I think Calvary Wesleyan Church is the name of it.
Yes.
I'm going to be doing a couple seminars at that conference. So you can hear more about Just Embrace there, and I'll be there. You can come to Chicago. You can visit me here. I'd love to have people, especially this summer. I could really use a couple of visitors to come hang out with me for a couple weeks and help me hang out in the community. Check us out on Facebook. Honestly, Facebook, it's interesting. The majority of the support that Just Embrace has gotten, not necessarily financially, but relationally and verbally, has come from Facebook. Like, people are seeing and they're sensing that God is at work in our community. So definitely, if you're interested, just tap into that and watch us. Just stalk us a bit and see what you think. And then finally, pray for us. I would really covet your prayers. I was laying in bed last night, hardly able to sleep because of this today and just a couple of things that are going on. And
We do that to people.
I don't know what God's doing. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's been stirring in my heart since high school. And I'm beginning to see some of my long-term dreams starting to happen, and it's terrifying in a good way.
Sher, I wonder, is it possible, and I don't want to put anything on you that you can't do, is it possible that, let's say, a youth pastor or a pastor just wanted to come in town for a day, and as opposed to like bringing a group that's going to try to do some work, but to come up to simply be educated a little bit about the challenges of ministering in the context where you are, the rewards of ministering there, and to where they can kind of see what's happening on the ground there and maybe take some of that experience and go back to their own context and begin to do something. I mean, is that possible? Could they contact with you for a day and just kind of shadow you?
Absolutely. That would be amazing. I would absolutely love that. That would be a blast. I got to start figuring out how I can make money off of that, but because I would do that for free all day long, and then I wouldn't be able to pay my school bills. But absolutely, that would be wonderful. And here's the thing about Just Embrace: it's not about the homeless. Now, the community we live in has a lot of homeless and mentally ill, but the way that we're living, we want it to be an inspiration for anybody in any context. It's not. I think if we make it about the poor, then it's not applicable to everybody, and I don't want to be spreading a message that creates then margins and puts people on the outside. So there's definitely things to learn from the way that we're living and the ministry that we're doing that is applicable in any ministry setting. So yeah, would love to see that happen.
Hey, Sher, just so you know, Chris Major's in the chat room and says he's going to be in Chicago in August. So we're encouraging him to look at it. Yeah.
There you go.
That's awesome.
All right, Sher, thanks so much for taking time out to be with us today.
Thank you very, very, very much. It's been awesome.
All right, blessings on you.
You've made us all proud, for sure.
That's right. Talk to you later.
Thanks.
You know, one of the things, I've brought this book up before on the show, but the book Divided by Faith. This is Michael Emerson and Christian Smith's book about, they really play off of the phrase that 11 o'clock is on Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America. The idea that in our churches we don't reflect diversity. And they have a theory in there that evangelicals, and let me say this, the evangelical movement is like 90-some% white. So it's basically a white movement. And it's middle class or upper middle class. And their theory is this, that we are socialized in such a way that we don't see systems that can keep people down or put them in positions where they need to be lifted out. And so one of the things that she said is we kind of have this mindset, well, they made bad decisions, that's why they're here.
Yeah.
And that's the world that we live in. Make good decisions, good things will happen. Make bad decisions, bad things will happen. When there are people who fall victim to circumstances, and it's not that they can't get out of those, but they need someone from the outside who's going to reach in.
Yeah, there's a Tyler Perry's most recent movie, Good Deeds, speaks directly to this issue. There's a young mother in here, and her daughter end up being homeless, and it is it's just a great example of, like you just said, why is she in this situation? Well, it tells you that, and it's not what you think it would be, and it's a story of redemption in all of that.
Well, if you get a chance, go to Chicago, spend some time with Sher. It's an eye-opener. Also, we just encourage you to hook up with JustEmbrace. You heard about the fundraising that they're doing right now, and you just encourage you to be a part of that. All right, it's time for
What?
Download of the Week.
Oh, it is. Whoa. I was on the wrong thing. I saw you pull out that other one.
There you go.
Great. I have nothing for I was not set up at all for that. So sorry. I've got nothing.
When you gave me the thumbs up,
I thought you were pulling out the other thing. Oh, my word. Hold on a second.
Major fail.
I'm so sorry.
There
it is.
Download of the week.
Whoa. Fail.
All right. And our download of the week is Cheat Sheet. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Cheat Sheet's a little application, just this little tiny thing that runs on your Macintosh system, but I believe we also have an alternative for Windows computers. Yeah, but here's what it does. In your operating system, there are so many little shortcuts that can happen and that are awesome with the keyboard. In fact, you are a faster computer person if you use your keyboard and not your mouse. I know that may seem funny, but what I've discovered in learning the paradigm of OS X on a Macintosh is that everything can be done using the keyboard. And when you learn those things and how those branch out and work, man, it makes you fast. So getting stuff like that, and then we've installed these programs like Alfred and Quicksilver, which are quick launchers. And once you start using the keyboard, man, you can fire up applications and move around like this. Well, sometimes there are so many keyboard shortcuts that you forget, well, what's what and how does it all work? So Cheat Sheet's this little application that once you install it on a Mac, you press and hold the command key, and after 2 seconds of holding it, it brings up this sheet of all the keyboard shortcuts for the application that you're using, and just lets you look through there as a way of cheating so that you don't have to dig around and figure that out. It works in any application, just reads all those things and shows them for you wherever you're at. Now, what's the alternative application for a Windows computer?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember. What I did is in our show notes, we have the link there. So if you're a Windows person, if you're a Windows person, I mean, I don't use, I'm just firmly vested in a Mac world, and second to that's Ubuntu, Linux. So, but we've got the link on our show notes, and so you can check it out there.
Same sort of deal, though. It shows you shortcuts because there are shortcuts. I mean, one of the things that I appreciated about OS X is I feel like how there's the Windows key on a Windows machine. Yeah. And that key, for the longest time, it seemed like all it did was when you pressed it, it opens the start menu, and it just sits there and it's kind of wonky and useless in a way. OS X built everything off that command key that has a little apple and that command symbol on it. I mean, it all branches out from there, and it works for so many different things, and it seems smarter to me. But
yeah, if you look at the Windows 7 cheat sheet, a lot of that branches off of the Windows key.
Yeah,
So-
and I think that some of that, I think some of it's been around for a long time. I think that like Windows key plus D would always show you the desktop. But these are just things that you're not trained in Windows. You're so mouse driven in that nobody ever tells you, hey, this is how it works. And I don't know, maybe Windows key and tab, or I don't know if it's Control key and tab. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Well, and after a while, you use one of these shortcuts for a long time. It just gets ingrained in your head, and it's become second nature. All right, well, let's move on to They Said It.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
We had looked at different groups like CEOs and high-level executives thinking, oh, do we need to spend more time with them? And then this religion thing popped up. Claire Diaz-Ortiz of Twitter, upon discovering that the popularity of the application among Christian leaders surpassed NBA players, politicians, and actors. Source, The New York Times.
This struggle takes a terrible toll as pastors wrestle with crammed calendars, hectic homes, splintered dreams, starved intimacy, and shriveled purpose. Some quit in utter hopelessness. Others collapse into passivity, and many of the rest just hold on by their fingernails. Dr. H.B. London discussing the plight of many contemporary pastors. Source, Pastors at Greater Risk.
We are no longer under the theocratic nation state of Israel, but how God has set up his economy for his people has not changed. The law was given to help people live in the shalom of God. That's what gives the law, principles like taking a Sabbath and the tithe, an enduring effect. Reverend J.D. Greer, pastor of the Summit Church in Durham, North Carolina, in a recent blog post where he attempts to answer the question, do Christians have to tithe? Source, The Christian Post.
So the very first one you read here, you put me onto this one. I thought this was fascinating.
Yeah.
Because if you ask me my conventional thinking, who are the ones that really blow up Twitter?
Right.
You would think actors, actresses, sports figures. Not the case.
Well, here's the thing, is those people, people like Paris Hilton, which she doesn't really fall under any, she's just famous for being famous, but she has, over 7 million Twitter followers. I remember back a few years ago when it was a big deal when Ashton Kutcher and Oprah Winfrey were racing to see who could get to 1 million first. And so now, so people like that have lots of followers, but what they found as far as retweets and mentions, that it was these Christian leaders, people like Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen, and a lot of that is Joel Osteen is not tweeting, what a great breakfast this morning at Waffle House. He's not, he's tweeting out quotes from his books and other people's books, scripture, and that's what I hate to break it to you. LeBron James controls his Twitter account. He actually tweets, and he's tweeting stuff like, hey, we're hanging out with so-and-so. Joyce Meyer and some of these people probably aren't controlling their Twitter account. And so it's set up by people to tweet out quotes, things that are retweetable. You're not going to retweet
having sandwich down here. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome corned beef.
And so what they're basing that on is the interaction and that, when Joyce Meyer tweets something out, it gets retweeted hundreds, if not thousands, of times.
And let me put a shout out too for Claire Diaz-Ortiz. She works within Twitter.
Yeah.
And she's the one that was doing this study and began to look at these numbers, saying, "Wow, these are out of whack." These retweets. She has a book. I mentioned it to Sher just in the pre-show. Twitter for Good. And if you are a nonprofit, she talks about how to maximize the use of Twitter. She has five points in that book, and it's TWEET, tweet, target, write, engage, explore, and track. Book again. If you're nonprofits, if it's worth reading that to maximize the use of Twitter for raising funds.
And let me say this too. If you go to the link about this for this article. Claire is an evangelical Christian. She was hired by Twitter to engage more evangelical leaders. She's worked overseas in an orphanage and moved to Atlanta to be Atlanta is right now a hotbed of the evangelical movement.
We need to try to get her on.
Dude, that would
We'll send her request and see if we can get her on the show.
That'd be great to talk about this. Can I just say, we talked about athletes a little bit, and one of the big stories this week, Roger Clemens, who is in our They Said It, apparently he was not lying when he said that.
That's right. He said it.
He did.
He said it.
He said it. I believe it. And that settles it.
Hey, so here's something else. This is totally off basis, but I think
Okay.
we have redefined the pronunciation of evangelical, because every time I've heard you guys say it today, all I hear in my head is the new way to say it. And it keeps
Evangelical.
over and over again. Like, I think you said it like 7 times during that last story.
Evangelical. All right, Tej, we have a PDF here, just a graph, and this
Right
gets
there
to
it
our
is.
second quote.
Yeah.
This is alarming. Now, you can find this at Seedbed. This is put out by Asbury. There's a lot of paid-for materials at Seedbed, but this is free, and it's just a PDF, and it's a dashboard indicator. And let's just look at some of these here. And these are all concerning pastors. 50% of all pastors would leave the pastorate if they had somewhere else to go for another way to make a living. 94% feel under constant pressure to have a perfect family. 1,500 pastors leave their ministries each month due to burnout, conflict, or moral failure. 25% don't know where to turn when they have a family or personal conflict. I mean, these things go on and on and on. It talks about how spouses feel like that the ministry is adversely affecting their family.
Yeah.
I would just encourage pastors, any teachers, if you're listening, Sunday school teachers, prominent lay people in your church, go to Seedbed. This is something, again, put out by Asbury. Download this PDF, and it's just a dashboard report on pastoral burnout.
One thing that I appreciated, I've been privileged to serve in 3 districts, and in the Penn Jersey district, in situations like this, they pay for a pastor to get counseling. And basically, they tell you to go. They have a list of counselors they recommend. They don't ask questions. You go, no matter what you're struggling with, you can go, you can get counseling. The district gets a bill, they pay for it. They don't even see the name of the patient. I know North Carolina East has partnered with Dr. Clifton Wood, and I would really love to see, I've only been in South Carolina back a short time, but it would be great if every district had something in place to prevent this. And I hope that in our restructuring of our denomination, that Russ Gonzalez, who is over education and clergy development, I believe, this has got to be in the forefront. I think we're trying to get better at that front door of ministry, but we've got to close the back door of guys slipping through the cracks, of ladies slipping through the cracks. I can't imagine, this isn't addressed on this chart, but I can't imagine the pressures that female ministers face to be under. It seems like they're under such a microscope, but I would love to see, a study on the pressures that they face.
Now I thought your wording is great there. We have to close the back door. When you look at this graphic here, it is about the back door.
Yeah.
And by the way, all of the statistics that are taken out of here are on this graph here, are taken from H.B. London's book, Pastors at Greater Risk. The Focus on the Family gave them permission to use that.
Right, and this is a great book. Let me share a real quick story. There's a book our coaching group has been reading by Eugene Peterson called The Pastors. It's a memoir of his ministry. And he talked about one year he was just having this really bad depression. And so on his annual report, he put, hey, I'm struggling here. I'm having really bad depression. Can I get some help? Didn't hear anything back. The next year, he put on his annual report, I have been drinking a little more than usual. As a matter of fact, I'm drinking heavily. I passed out before church one Sunday and had to preach hungover. No response. So the next week he's like, hey, having some struggles. My wife and my girlfriend aren't getting along. Didn't hear anything back.
Word.
So they call him in, and he thinks it's about some of this stuff, but it was about something else. And he's like, have you guys not been reading my reports? And nobody. But it was just year after year, what he reported just got more and more absurd.
Outrageous.
Of this, yeah. And
well, you know what? Now you raises a point, because one of the criticisms, for those that don't know, I serve as a part-time assistant DS here in South Carolina, and one of the things that I have to do annually is to look at the annual service reports that all of us here have to fill out. And one of the things that we do, we're very intentional about, is we read every one of those reports, and then we debrief about those reports. Is there anything there? And I mean, the story that you just given to us, it raises just a great point that if we're going to be giving reports for people to do, those reports should be read by somebody. Also, I know North Carolina West was the first district that I was aware of that actually did that. They had Clifton Wood, and they would say to their pastors, "You just go." We do that here, and there are probably other districts that do that as well.
Our district superintendent, Buddy Rampy, who's in the chat room listening to every word we say, it reminded me that we do have something in place, and that, to me, it is just vital.
Yeah,
vital.
Hey, let's move on to this last story here. I thought this is interesting. I mean, it's a blog. If you want to go to the complete blog about, do Christians have to tithe? The reason this caught my attention is a few years ago I heard Chuck Swindoll preaching. He had this strong message where he said tithing is an Old Testament principle. It's not a New Testament principle. And he kept hammering away. This 10%, that's Old Testament. It's not. We're not under law anymore. We're under grace. But then he transitions. He goes, the New Testament principle is it all belongs to God.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've heard multiple people speak on this, and I think it's great. I've heard a lot of pastors say, do we really expect the single mother who's to give 10% plus her faithfulness to the church and all of this? Like, how do we balance all that out? And yet they always do transition to that Acts model, and everyone gave where there was a need, or it's impressive to do that. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing, and I wish that we talked about that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, there's a guy, Letourneau, he's I don't remember the title of the book, the Builder of Men, or I don't know. But Letourneau, he is a guy who promised God that he would live off 10% and give 90% to the work of the Lord. So we have Tacoma Falls College.
Yeah.
It's built on funds that, off of Letourneau's tithe.
Yeah.
There's another
Rick
CMA
Warren
college. What?
Doesn't Rick Warren do that himself too? I think that's what he said after his books, The Purpose-Driven Life began.
Rick Warren wrote a book?
Is that the right guy? Am I talking about?
No, you're right.
After smart his, Alec.
Okay. After his couple of books, I think that he decided to do that too. I think that he said, there's no reason that I'm getting paid by the church and getting paid for these books. I don't need that to live off of. I'll live off of 10%, and I'll give 90% of everything that I have back into the church and back into the kingdom. And I think that's very respectable of guys to do that.
Well, listen, we want to announce our winners. Before we do that, why don't we hear one more time from our sponsor, Kingwood University.
This episode of the Techology Show is brought to you by Kingswood University. Prepare for full-time Christian service by earning a degree in ministry. Feel the heartbeat of Kingswood to become more like Christ. Embrace academic excellence and learn from highly trained, experienced practitioners. Become a passionate missional leader by participating in real-life ministry. Kingswood University offers you the opportunity to create your own degree focus for God's unique call on your life. Kingswood University equips Christ-like servant leaders for global impact. For more information, please visit www.kingswood.edu.
Once again, announce what are they going to win?
They're going to win a T-shirt, not like this one, but one that says Kingswood on it, and a mug. And our winners are
and pins. Sorry, and a flashlight.
Brand new car.
Everything you need to get through Sussex, New Brunswick, Canada. All right, here we go. Here are our winners. Fake drum roll, please. Number one, Dale Argott.
Hey, Dale. Congratulations, man.
Second winner, Yeah, 3 prize packages. Thank you so much, Kingswood. Alex Santos, who is Canadian, we've been told. And then last but not least, also Canadian, Sheila Murphy. We will not be able to ship internationally.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's right, man. I mean, we can't be shipping this stuff out to foreign countries. I mean,
Yes.
come on here.
But we'll deliver it to Kingswood University and do the show.
The next
from there.
time Mark Gorvette passes through here, we'll put it in his car.
Yeah.
He can take it back.
No.
But thanks to
Be nice.
thanks,
We'll get it out today.
thanks to everybody for entering. Yeah, we appreciate your support and tweeting it out and putting it
That's
on
right.
Facebook.
Yeah. Good
All
job.
right. Want to remind you that to go to Sher Sheets' website, JustEmbrace, to get involved there and take advantage of that. Also, let me tell you what's coming up next week. We have Mark Waltz in via Skype. He is the author of First Impressions: Creating Wow Experiences in Your Church. He has written 2 other books. It's going to be also our pleasure to have in studio Beth Peterson. Beth put us on to Mark and some of his writings. He is out of the Granger Church up in Indiana, and just really looking forward to that. It's going to be a great show. Also, we will be doing a show on the 4th of July, so tune in for us then. And then July, yeah, he's going to do all the patriotic music through his nose. That'll be great. July the 11th, we will not be having a show. Our producer will be at camp with all
camp.
the kids.
Oh, yeah.
camp.
Being a counselor, doing the
We
Lord's
can't
work.
We can't do a show from camp on the camp internet.
That's it.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
that's
that
a
be,
no.
We'd have a live studio audience.
We would have on download
How-
of the week. We could get it. in
How
live.
how would you keep all those kids entertained? Like, what would be your,
Oh,
your story?
that'd be.
I like your idea. Download of the week, and we have real kids. Yay!
Let's see if I can record that. I'll see if I can get a recording of that.
I will be on assignment next week, chasing down some interviews in Portland, Oregon. So I'm excited about
Assignment.
that. Yeah.
Is that vacation?
No. Speaking of the camp.
All right, Heath, where can our listeners find you?
They can go to heathmullican.com, and in just a few minutes, you'll be able to read my post on this summer's reading list. So go and check that out. And thanks to everybody who's been coming to heathmullican.com.
All right, Matthew.
You can find me at matthewtg.com, where, as we always say, if you can spell my last name, you are
You're
worthy
worthy.
to see
Yeah, you
what I
can,
have on my website.
you can find me at facebook.com/AKC64. If you want to do any further research on anything we discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com, or better yet, leave us a voicemail by calling us at 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message, and we may even play your comments on the air. As always, thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.
You guys rock.